Welcome to the Football for Kids podcast with me, Darren Rees. Firstly, you've probably noticed that the podcast has been a little bit quiet over the past week or so. That's because I've been very busy doing all sorts of other podcast things. A few things I need to tell you about, and I've got something for you to get involved in. So make sure you are listening. Firstly, Part 2 on Thierry Henry is out now for all of you Patreon super listeners, so please do go and check that out and let me know what you think of that episode. Also, just a reminder that all the super listeners on Patreon can get themselves a Football for Kids Euro 2024 wall chart and activity pack. I'll be putting a post out on Patreon in the next 10 days about how to get yourself one. Anyone who is currently a Patreon super listener or anyone who signs up to become a Patreon super listener before the 2nd of June will be able to get a free Euro 2024 wall chart and activity pack. If you're not already a super listener, then please ask an adult to have a look at the link in the description of this episode. Now, this is where I'm going to need your help. Because next week, I'm off to see some of the players who will be participating in this year's Soccer Aid, a match to raise money for UNICEF, the charity which does such wonderful things. I need your help, Football for Kids listeners, as I'm going to be able to spend a little bit of time to interview some of these players. Now, I'll read out the names, and some of them you will know, and some of them you might not. Jill Scott, the former Lioness, who of course won the Euros with England, Stuart Broad, the cricketer, Paddy McGuinness, David James, the former England and Portsmouth goalkeeper, Jermaine Defoe, another Pompey player, and of course a top England player, Gary Cahill, Tom Grennan, Jack Wilshere, Joe Cole, Sir Mo Farah, Alex Brooker, Erin Doherty, Stephen Bartlett, Danny Dyer, Theo Walcott, Ellen White, Frank Lampard, Robbie Williams, Harry Redknapp, David Seaman, and someone I'm sure anyone who loves football and watches it on YouTube will know, Billy Wingrove. That's not all though, there's plenty of others. The fastest man on the planet, Usain Bolt, Eden Hazard, Tommy Fury, Maisie Adden, Diamond, Roberto Carlos, Roman Kemp, Lee Mack, Theo Baker, Jason Manford, Petr Cech, Patrice Evra, Michael Essien, and Mauricio Pochettino, Eddie Hearn, Tony Bellew, and plenty of others. So, if there's a name there, whether that's a celebrity or a former footballer or whoever it is that you want to ask a question to, then this is what you got to do. You've got to ask an adult to get an email across to footballforkidspodcast@gmail.com or head to the website www.footballforkidspodcast.com and fill in the contact form. Or if you're a super listener on Patreon, I've already put a post up there for you to get involved in. Just let me know what player, if you had the chance, you would like to ask a question to, and what would that question be. And I'm going to do my absolute very best to speak to as many of those people as I possibly can, especially Roberto Carlos, and see what questions I can ask them. And then Soccer Aid have very kindly invited me to Stamford Bridge, the home of Chelsea, to watch the Soccer Aid match and to cover it. So there will be a very special Soccer Aid episode coming out in a couple of weeks' time. And lastly, as Euro 2024 is fast approaching, the podcast is going to get very busy again. So, number 1, make sure you are following the podcast. And number 2, make sure you tell all of your football-loving friends and family to do exactly the same thing. Because next week, there is another Super Week. This means a new episode every single day for an entire week. And this Super Week, to get us in the mood for Euro 2024, will be England legends. We're talking Michael Owen. We're talking Paul Gascoigne. We're talking David Seaman. But who else do you want to feature on the Super Week? Once again, use all the usual places, the email address, the website and Patreon to let me know. So, a quick recap. Thierry Henry Part 2 is now out on Patreon. Euro 2024 wall charts and activity packs will soon be available for free for all current Patreon supporters and anyone who signs up to Patreon before the 2nd of June. The link is in the description of this episode. Get your questions in for the Soccer Aid players, and next week is a very special week. It's Super Week. So remember, if you know someone who loves football just as much as you do, then please tell them about Football for Kids. And whether you're playing football soon, watching it on the telly, or pitchside, I hope that you enjoy the game. See you next time.